sort of main on the movie I'm sitting on the boatman watching so it would be that finding out like the boatman parts house like under the thing pretty most likely that document that will be uh revealing that like the boatman part in upon the might of the revolution for the getting part might be that's the very first winner of like the Squid since like I think it was that revealed that the Squid had startup way back in like 1999 and things. So like in that very first game that made of the revolutions were like it might be this very same Portman farm who might have ended up becoming like the winner. It's definitely my good strategy. So like after becoming like the winner, even though he might have got all that money. So that might have been the revolutions were like back then, even though on the Madison revolution it might have been like the Portman Rock who might have been like the winner of like the Wake Up games in like 1999. Still I'm in that time like the reward money that Finland might have placed for like the winner of like the Squid back then in like the very first Squid Games in 1999 might have not been nowhere near as that huge as it is in like the definitely might have so like the reward money might have not been that huge. So like I'm looking after that Park might have even got a like reward money like still I'm looking like Park might have still decided to that for like students like I'm looking after getting like the reward money maybe it might have been Park himself that might have contacted right to contact that the students and that in that way it might also suddenly like in terms of the appointing Park as like as like the person to this individual to that for the work for like the student. So like I could very impressive like since when maybe like support path might have for a while might have worked as like a student worker for a few years and maybe that might be after that like maybe that in might have changed that parts like job to like basically to work into like a new working as like the government while in might have hold fast that basically that because like during this time, like time period, like different while that this game might have been going on for like 3 years since then, like there might have been multiple attempts to like escape out of like the first game, by seeking candidates in like the hospital and friends. So like in multiple occasions, like it might have been such situation where like in multiple of experience during like the early years of experience, like multiple candidates might have managed to escape out of that the game either that might have attempted to escape but like I'm saying, in those times, like it might have been through past like experience as like the boatman that it might have been through past the boatman past help that I'm referring that maybe England might have successfully managed to that catch up those skating before that they to make it to like the mainland and it might have been past himself according to like the author of England who might have that eliminated all those like Indian candidates who might have attempted to escape the England. So like from that point on, maybe like India might have changed like past job from what it has like a game of in like or 11.2 that they having spark so the so such a job where like this task might have been to that totally for like whenever like in civilian candidates will even attempt to like escape or mix media balance like spark would be that person that will straight away for to that to stop that escape uh with that task quickly showing up with his like both and the thing might have been what might have happened in that house because he might also so my real picture like it might have been once like even greater number of years had passed that they eventually like the civilian workers might have started with like for organ transportation and everything. So, like even then that women like those civilian workers might have for like the whole transportation that even that the civilian workers might have relied on task itself, like the government task itself for like the transportation of like the organs and everything. Might have been what might have happened in that task. So like that might have made money through doing that side job as well. That as like a side job as well might have been what might have happened in the past. Definitely might have been. Definitely right now, but that was deployed right now, integrating into that out of that broadband path. Like I'm when that the thing is joy will be finding will be like sorting evidence, kind of like path being like the winner of like the very first season. So like I'm doing like journey document of documents which will be having because with that ultimate evidence that showing that that path was like the winner of that very good game as well as like even catching for as well. That as like remembering specifically my representative like Captain Pope might have been like the winner of like the Indians in like the year 2000 like in the second Indians like that that took place like I'm going might have been Captain Pope that might have been like the winner of the team might have been that might have been how like the sport connection and bond between that the Boardman Park and Captain Pope might have happened and they might have worked together in like the past and that might have might be reflecting the kind of that bond of conflict that between that might have existed for like a long time between like the boatman part as well as like the boatman Destiny as well. might have been what might have happened with Bob. So let's believe that on the different this that evidence connecting to that Bob being like the winner of like the first Squid Games and like Captain Pro being like the winner of like uh, the second Squid Games that like in 2000 what I'm looking right now for Mr. Joy to like find at like part of home like the finale that and yet like I'm certainly like the belief for like part to also have set up like a trap within his own home to probably in that but like understand that Park might have also considered that the worst case scenario in this like someone even find Park for future at some point and if the even attempts to like integrate into like home so like understand so like the three understands that like even if such a scenario happens like in order to like prevent like anyone from seizing and successfully escaping those like evidence connecting to like Park connection to like the students like super than that, like I'm thinking probably a huge range of scrap might be secretly set up by Park himself on way back in this like out of Park. Definitely my recommendation. So like and the thing that for like and then the thing that it might be if I thought it's explosive definitely not the recommendation. So definitely that maybe there's like a time range definitely my recommendation. So like and the thing definitely right now it's like it's story integrating into like platform and the thing that story managing to like find like evidence but like I'm putting joy without even realizing that it's joy even also that activating that practice as well to definitely my pyramid. Yeah, like I'm saying that so they are like managing to like escape by the time it's joy so we are realizing that like the trap has been activated almost like inspiration. Like I'm like the story I'm saying that the all strength like they are managing to like escape out of like the house of park before like closures will be that sex person will be happening and like I'm just still even though I'm just like scenario like game though the story will be like managing to like make it out of like park house alive by then uh but friends still like process the person would have caused like serious levels of like certain extent of like this level of injuries to like to like this short by then like the scenario and then so like that mean and mention right now like for like the very front of that class house being even while being locked being like the class of like and that would definitely be uh, uh set up in such a manner by path and purpose in a purposeful manner as definitely I think might have been definitely something that path might have done consciously because like I'm just like even if like someone finds that so that's like ensure that even if someone finds that path suspicious or like even if someone figures out like the connection between that path and like the students and tries to that they get in that attempt to like get evidence that from that path house like even if someone tries to like infiltrate successfully infiltrate into that path's house to make it easy for them to like at that point to be able to like infiltrate into that path's home by setting up that door to be just a glass door which like is doing right now solely due to that glass pipe have visually broken into that the house of that path home. It will be definitely consciously, might be definitely consciously done by path. So that's to ensure that like even if that's anyone finds that path of reach then tries to like infiltrate to that part of the house to have them straight away get eliminated by furthering that trap which might probably be put within that part of the house. So that even if someone attempts that like to infiltrate into that part of the house, to like straight away eliminate that to ensure that they get like eliminated straight away will be the reason for like such a glass door easy to break glass door being present for like classes out might be the case of certainly method damage. Also, the main method I mentioned right now for like even when they're being like an aggressive dog at like classes mode, and they see that dog being on a leash on a kind of state, could be also yeah consciously might have been done by far to like trick any intruders into that thing into that totally letting their guard down into like not suspecting that the possibility into totally feeling safe after like bypassing the side of the dog and that way to have them get their guard down on integrating into laptop home so that like so that way increase that much of extra positive like them the intruders with the guard down that ending up that actually activating that trap which might be an explosive kind of trap which will be within like practice house within like practice house. Leave another information that is sitting on the so like the climatic reimbursement right now that's for like not right now receiving like reach to like about might not really going to like support of like the office of yet for it to not make any sense to him right now would be totally due to like the office of will be right now given that extreme suspicion as for like due to that why exactly you all want to that all of that in between like while the experience is like going on like as to like why exactly you all might want to do that uh, abruptly leave from like the student, which might be something that Neil might have never done throughout her career up until now as like a student or other. Definitely my definition. But then now like I'm defending that up until this very year, like Neil might have purposely done her work and job as like a executed her work and job as like a speaking work of this in their time. Definitely my preparation. New York might probably have such a track record and like the officer, like I think like it was like the officer who had about New York to land the to like the civilians as like the civilian worker. So like in this like New York had joined and started working as a civilian worker. Even back all the way back since then, like the officer might have been thoroughly observing New York and like her the way she performs her work as like a civilian worker. Uh, in a seamless manner and everything might have been the case in the United States. So like I'm able that in the past that this very same officer was in like the black uniform of like a civilian worker like this officer in like that distant past when in that he might have brought New York to like the civilian and had New York join as a civilian worker like at that point like this very same officer might have been also like a civilian worker in that red uniform. So definitely my favorite. So like he might have been that among like the group of that civilian workers who are like most superior, especially my company under like the hierarchy under that in hope, but like the front man, but still that even like this that current officer might have been back then like among like the uh, top superior to be in the person like ready and combat and certainly many candidates. So like you all might have set up such a track record by now where like easier like to show up to work as a civilian worker to like somebody exactly for work perfectly and all the way to that easier like until like this weekend and all the way easier might have been like the limits which were like this might be the reason for like right now that the office are feeling extreme I did only feeling extremely surprised that you are someone who has set up such a perfect track record, like all of a sudden, like with very year alone, that you are wanting that actually leave like the school games by even like cheating like the man by even daring to that even cheat like man and by even like going through like extremities of like pointing her weapon and threatening even like the officer for like me to like leave to get the boat and leave the games like abruptly like if the for you to like go to such extreme that there might be some specific critical and crucial reason that might that reason might have like the possibility of like putting that topic of himself into getting him into like serious trouble against like the front man as well would be also along the lines of the like the officer might have right now of like a conclusion that like the officer right now might have came down to Japanese method of this might be the reason for like the officer something feeling this feeling of like this things not making sense something to like the things like New York like something like New York wanting like escape right now that's a feeling that he might have had, like Gauser might have had within him. And that feeling of not making sense that he might have had within him might have only raised that and amplified by now. Definitely not the reason might be the reason for like him right now giving like the order to one of the useful game of the skill like check like the operating role. It's definitely my personal and since that it was like after that and you're having been said to have gone up to like the operating room that like basically before situation with like all the civilian workers ending up getting eliminated in like the operating room as well as like new born like when threatening like the officer with like from the to like escape and all this happened like what happened after like the after like New York had gone to like the operation then this might be the reason for like definitely by now like the officer ordering one of the civilian workers to like check like the operating room right now. So that leave my opinion. Okay, so that's definitely my good story and correction right now as well. Like the game of the screen just like top and screen that is speaking and is going electronic right now that won't be containing props, but like instead it will most likely containing a different kind of like weapon connected to that the games it's definitely my intent for like speaking and it is definitely I do the case league my book and also my book right now especially for like if I did not take in like the first good game that I'm just playing that exact green liquid which was that so all the way back in like the 2020 when Savior had this entered like and from this a bit through like the feeling pathway from like first scope within like game building like that green liquid that like Savior had seen all the way back then. Number find that that green liquid might be definitely some sort of like anesthetic highly saying of aesthetic liquid might be the case definitely in the game so like that liquid and the different that green liquid and the different most likely to be might be part of like the good game. That's like about the checklist right now. By the remix. But like as for like the profit, that's like up to like something candidate right now on the that would be most likely containing some sort of like a different kind of like sweater connected to like something. It's a pretty amazing that's sitting out. Okay, so like the new trends are right now that I think that work like all the club that we have that for newer to that the civilians as like to work as like a civilian worker like and but in the place of like the opposite would be that even to the person would be productively even observe like like even in that outside world as well and might know how much of that to an extreme man or like like even in that process of like surviving in like that's running like survive even in like outside world even while having a job as an experienced worker. So like that money that you will be getting once we are so have like a second worker, that will be something that like I'm still need and the officer would be that it would be feeling up like officers be like being that much essential for like to be able to like survive and like outside work. So so like for that me also like only to take quite a liking towards like that offer to game worker. So like my friends for like also we don't think that for that very same me also is that who have also in like the game has like made public objects for like same objection to constituting like the urban transportation by destroying like multiple items to keep uh, keep like the eliminated the game candidates alive and all that like it's that very same new like basically having while in like that operation role that having taken out like all those like the game what multiple three or four the game workers to like prevent like that organ protection like by simultaneously that very same new having taken quite a liking towards like that towards that top who to gain the campus like meant to do that like for operation for freedom and all that. Like basically that would like collectively think won't be at all adding up for like the officer. It's definitely like a prohibition. Like you're taking quite a liking to that same that lot of game work up to like the point of like who's like in charge of like doing like the host of the and for like the organ transplantation and they for someone like you to like take a liking towards him and going to like extent of that basically taking off all the remaining civilian workers in that operation for while staring in that document is the stent neural like with them both planning to like escape out of like the civilian building out of like the civilian island like and that it's in even threatening like the officer himself for like to like escape that the civilian worker and all that like we none of these will be making sense at all to that the officer and different like right now with like the officer telling in the order to like one of the civilian workers to like once again check like the operating phone like I'm preferring like definitely even right now I'm preferring like that since like and with like for the officer telling him like it's time to not miss out anything like I'm thinking so that right now I'm preferring that civilian worker but I also already said like the operation 3 months and like I'm doing it like the second time right now it will be how that we will be checking like the operation. So but like even the second time as well, I'm looking like thoroughly checking, but like no, I didn't think of this that out like the scenario that I'm yet like I'm doing and then reporting that to like the officer as like the scenario that I'm doing. Yet like for the officer there will be that extreme suspicion connecting to New Orleans and New York like recently case are not adding up. So like I'm confused also that will be feeling the often we think like the possibility of like basically having attempt done something suspicious which might have like the about which we won't be like aware of that which might have like the potential to like get like the officer himself in trouble against like the combat if like the uh if that the officer right now left go with like our investigation towards like there on the lines like the officer will be feeling so like I'm saying like the officer himself going through like the extremities of at that point of like it is going up to like the CCTV monitoring about and they're like and like so just telling like the civilian what the tool uh in charge of like monitoring like CCTV across like to be able to like probably check the first of all like I'm like the officer calling that civilian what up to when you're right now checking that operation once again like according to what was like the number of like that civilian candidate who had got eliminated in like that who was like found eliminated in that opportunity at all. So like considering that Indian was telling that number of Indian candidates. So like the officers straight away going up to like the CCTV monitoring phone and like basically telling one of the studium worker to take the result from when the specific number studium candidate was like eliminated by the studium worker by me or like will be along the lines of the different doctor telling that studium worker will be in charge of the studium monitoring. And in that result, like I'm looking at the officer seeing how like new itself like who was like the entire time like to always like ensure to like thoroughly eliminate like any student candidates who that the other student of the try to keep alive like that very same new like if you like consciously like keeping that student candidate and I would be what like I'm like at that point that the officer would be finding them more suspicious. So like I'm feeling like the officer will be seeing like that results of like sensitive results of like new probably that way eliminating that student candidate while keeping that student candidate alive. And at that point, I'm looking at the office of himself straight away going up to like the operating rooms with like scenario that I'm looking at. They are like getting that with a shock and like that realization that like his suspicion is the entire time connected to like me or was right with like him straight away seeing that like the that exact number eliminate student candidate like just like by seeing his like face itself like in like the operating room itself like definitely like from like and comparing it to like the case of like the student candidate that anyone had eliminated that exact number. So like CCTV footage is like and straight away like the officer realizing that this is that like that element student candidate in that operating room which not like the person that like knew student candidate that knew had eliminated in the CCTV issue. So like this what I'm referring like it literally happen at court and doctor literally find out like the scenario that happened. And at that point self I'm referring definitely for like the officer to probably before we have like a radio conversation like just right away getting a report from one of the discipline was like in charge of like the monitoring of the physically who would be like noted in that like really things like right now the situation is basically that New being in student worker home and basically the fact that New York is right now food. So like right now the time basically were like the student workers are changed or food like I'm doing that league New York might probably as part of your strategy New York might already told that the student and they are sending off as like the guys are like then basically worker like your mother told him to like not have any food, that he access food, but like to not have any food, and to like okay, so one of fake acting as if like his like body language as if like he's like while sleeping his like and on his like stomach as if like he's not feeling well, like it, not feeling well and doesn't want to like have food like so like that way. And but different like me all might out. Toward that strategy to like the power student candidate before telling more to like the number of students to games worked at home. So that like Neo might that might have been that we're trying to like prevent like the possibility of like the good game of the like mountain like to be to like find to have all their focus and that system to like fall on like the power student candidate the number of students case to game worked alone and that way to like then maybe take a find it suspicious or like ethics by like certainly from selecting pricing new as well. And right now, with like food being brought to like new like a room like and the new as well won't be like eating like the food and like it's like the scenario that maybe pretending to like act put on a fake acting as the like click on the scenario that I'm right. So like I'm the skill like definitely I'm like that's the game one in charge of like the visually monitoring like I'm just gonna like seeing these two specific game monitors alone and like not having the food at all. So like I'm just like just like totally casually reporting it to like the office of that basically that like at that point once like the officer would be on like the operating room would be something finding out that like any of the structure and that that civilian candidate in like the operation here not like the civilian candidate that no one has been there like at that point self on the bringing the officer doing the call from one of the CCTV worker we like doing like the civilian worker home monitoring CCTV monitoring and in telling that the officer at that point that like usually that number 11 civilian worker like New as well as like the as well as that number 15 studio number not having their food standards. We can bring that according that to like of work like within our matter of over. So like at that point the purpose for like the office of like so they come down to like straight away coming to like the conclusion that we so that near had tried to like save that exact like Indian candidate and basically that Indian candidate being like sort of guys of like the number 16 civilian worker and that the uh, number three civilian worker that stopper might be like the person on like the table uh, on like the table in like the operating room like the eliminate state will do along the lines of the super like at that point for like the for like the like come down to like the up to like the like the of straight away reporting to like to like one of the civilian workers to gather up a bunch of like civilian workers and they be to capture for like the number 11 civilian workers as well as like the number 16 civilian workers ASAP would be along the lines of the door that I'm referring like the giving to like those points while like voucher as well will be hurrying towards like and specifically towards like New York Road, like the scenario that I'm explaining. So like I'm certain before like the officers will be making it there like I think like the remaining game of the different like officer when I doing for will be making it outside of like New York Road, which will be like a close state. So like I'm thinking that all those like rumor was using force and using their weapon and trying to like break down like the door to like New York before. But like I'm looking since like New York right now has already gotten like the keys to like the boat like New York straight away like would be realizing instantly that but like the attack was like Neon store like when we look at the news straight away instantly would be that realizing that there's a need that the cover and that's why they are playing so like Neon straight away that using a weapon onto like and strongly with his team in the home and like no straight away climbing up to like the ceiling passageway in like from like Neo's home it's like the scenario that I'm so like once like this could be but the children of us will be breaking down like you know like Neo's home like then probably finding like the room empty and with like the ceiling like there being a hole in like that ceiling so like I'm certain like that point and like game of the like they are like clipping up the like abandoned game of the like quickly trying to like enter into like the ceiling by like another remaining game of the among them that would be rushing off to like the room of like the number state to game of the and they will like the ring to game of the will be like as repeatedly attacking and some trying to like break down the door to like the number 15 to game of the so by the time they will be like breaking down that door like then finding their as well like the and the different example is finding like the room only empty like there being a full in the ceiling as well. So like I'm saying by the time like this game of had made it to like the room of like and seems to game of like and looking like you all might have on top of like making it feel like the ceiling like you all might have find out like a different from like the moment that in like the reason for the game when you all had shockingly found out like the first game candidate is like Squid Game had the path of like that world like unless like person has like a speaking candidate like at that point that New York might have fixed enough mind to like ensure the safe escape of like the first Squid candidate. So like I not you want like achieve that like New York man New York might have simply from like the room but like the eliminated players from like or not like and from that room but that's no CCTV like and from there like New York might have then found like passageway to like the ceiling and so that ceiling passageway New York by now might have gone to a great extent of like the passageway through like the to the to a great extent throughout like the game the film so like New York having this like no like New York might have the moment like New York would have escaped from that when New York's like home to gain candidate as the game of the home that New York might have he made it to that the home of like the past Indian candidate and might have quickly got pulled him up to like the ceiling as well and might have started they have to get through like the ceiling classes way by the time like the game of the ceiling right now like the no like then after the ceiling game of the like the scenario then so, like that way like Neo as well as like Neo will be telling like the past ceiling and they like follow her lead and they say that when Neo was doing it to that exact area where like that secret passageway meant for like the VIP just get out sleeping again like to see like the scenario that I'm so like Neo and like the past candidate they made the and while like the remaining studio workers would be like frantically and furiously passing through like the ceiling area, ceiling passageway, which will be like a total maze. So like they will be fluidly, continuously will get back and like will be clear stuff like that look for like new and like then I'm 15 and like that's the candidate like the scenario that I'm so like by this time like this time like me and like the candidate will be entering into that secret passageway, the escape passageway of like the VIP out of the studio and like yeah, like I'm hoping like by the time like me or and like the first green candidate would be making it out of like this weekend building. I'm hoping by then like I'm hoping like the officer will be probably having like an idea to like them having made out of like the capacity of like the so that by then like I'm looking like officers are gathering up a bunch of game models and going through that very same capability of like the VFs from the 10 like those game building and flag. And that's when I'm going to bring like the officer along with like the flag team of like a bunch of game models like on the chain to find and eliminate like Neo as well as like uh, that power saving candidate is like the scenario that I'm going to bring email today. Now, if the like this time, like New along with like the South Korean candidate, will be running towards like where what the path in, but then like the Korean Highlanders like the scenario that I'm doing. That way, like I'm doing by the time like New York and like the South Korean candidate will be getting on the board and like New York will be starting like the board and will be starting to like leave like this game and like by then like I'm looking like the team of like the officer and like a bunch of game of the doing it to like the shoreline. So like from there, like them using their weapon at like towards like the boat and number to bring like it totally resulting in like it totally resulting in like the Pakistani candidate like getting hit by like the weapon attacks of like the officer and like the civil war. So it's like the scenario that I'm looking and that's going like I'm looking like the Pakistani candidate to be badly getting beaten by like the injury of like that weapon attack is like scenario that I'm looking and like New York will be really trying to like save like the Pakistani candidate but like I'm maybe for like that to be how like the past three candidates will be eliminated were like the on top of like the already existing injury like I'm doing that second weapon attack as well and like the past three candidate like for the resulting in like not being able to like recover and survive that weapon attack injuries from like that weapon attack and like that way like the past three candidates was like the scenario that I'm doing and all at that point would be trying her absolute best to like save and rate like the past three candidate but like New York failing and at that point like New York probably being wrong right it's like the short and long places like the scenario that I'm looking over like and my experience. And this time like this time like Neon will be probably cooler plan as to like what to do at that point. While Neon will be in that the middle of the scene on for it's like the eventual scenario that I'm looking over like that. So like the real question right now, but like right now itself having found out about like the past candidates, the guys are still at New York while they are the same like still in the same right now. The flipper thing right now itself like still like the officer prioritizing stealthy elimination is what I'm looking like the of both New York as well as like the past candidates will be what like I'm looking right now with the officer will be attempting accepting that solely due and that will be solely due to like the presence of like the VIPs within like the stadium building. So definitely meant to but so definitely so like definitely meant to reimbursement right now it's definitely for like the scenario to be like the officer right now giving that the order to that exact single stadium but the officer right now figured out for like you know that saving like the path to me candidate like I'm looking that him telling right now that the officer giving the order to that exact stadium worker to like gather up a bunch of like Indian workers and basically and for like the officer along with them to like they can go up to like that actual scale to like go up to that location where like the boat will be like and to stay there will be along the lines like I'm saying like the or like the observer right now willing to that experience of like what's another parameter. So like that way like I'm looking like and that way I'm looking like not only like the power swinging candidates but like new labs well that without realizing that how is like flowing like looking like them actually like totally leaving like the game building and after that they are going like going up to do their post patrolling work like game island and that way like I'm like me as well as like the past game generate will be after like leaving the game building will be hurrying towards like the location of like towards like where like the boat will be parked in like game island and like New York and like the past game candidate will be finding the boat and will be talking east and will be about to board the boat like at that point I'm looking like them being totally cornered and surrounded by like the officer as well as like three or four other civilian workers along with like the officer as well. Like so it's surrounding and cornering that New York as well as like the past civilian candidate to execute that silent elimination of that New York as well as like the past civilian candidate is like the scenario that I'm so like at that point, I'm just trying like with the officer probably getting overcome and like seeing like the owner like new as well as like the house candidate again. Like I'm trying like the officer like walking up towards like the new and like the past candidate and everything like him probably saying some sort of dialogue towards like new and basically like along the lines of like basically like now Neo is going to take the punishment for that, that wrongdoing, and we by that at that point, I'm even also possibly maybe even getting triggered to the point of that also deciding to that making me also suffer by eliminating that the first looking candidate whom Neon had shown for such extreme to that protect in front of that Neon that way of that absolute suffering to that Neon, and then to like eliminate Neon will be along the line from the different that the officer would be at that point that so like the moment like the officer will be pointing the black weapon at like the fast shooting candidate to eliminate like the fast shooting candidate, and I'm the the situation being that 3 or 4 billion workers like basically being right that all of them pointing their weapon towards like Neon. That way that creating a situation where like create a situation where like it would be extremely hard for like New York to do anything. So like I'm different as like the officer would be pointing his weapon at like the house looking candidate and would be about like eliminate like the house looking candidate, and what still just like New York like absolute training and everything like New York, but that absolute speed like quickly managing to that take uh quickly managing to like turn like the officer into that neon or station at that point while pointing like the officer weapon by quickly stealing like the officer's weapon and like threatening like to eliminate like the officer in front of like the remaining 4 or 5 studio members like the scenario that I'm looking. In that way like I'm turning neon straight away quickly giving like the key to like the marketing candidate, and I'm like neon straight away telling him to like start the boat, and then we're like Neo while keeping like the officer on his stage like Neo like perfectly like entering like the boat is like the scenario is terrible, correct. And that way like none of like the screen was not being able to do anything at all like the scenario that happened. And like I'm like Neo would be telling at that point Neo definitely will be knowing how to operate a boat. So like I'm telling Neo yet like I'm going to be like the power sitting candidate that will be operating like the boat. But like Neo giving the instruction to like the power sitting candidate while tightly keeping that of this and threatening like the stadium workers to like not even think of like making a move, and basically like giving the order to that telling like the absolutely get to like how to start next the boat and how to like start the boat and everything. So like I'm doing that when the group of like the absolutely candidate as well as like the off stage officer of like they do like the city island that going to like the scenario that I'm and then the bring that way like through that while me all the way totally feeling relieved as to like basically that like has finally succeeded in like saving like the power student candidate like while having the officer like a hostage like and still still it would be eventually would be that stealing away like something like the body of like the officer and he is stealing away all the any and every weapons that he will be having, and like totally leaving him and basically while that doctor is still on the board like Neo will be having that serious talk with like officer like basically uh, along the lines and basically telling him to like not even dare to like make a move anymore. And I'm just like Neo at that point telling like the officer about like to create being like the research of like him ending up in like the situation and along those lines like Neo will be telling yet like I'm Neo would even be there to like write the bullshit of what like Neo not trusting like the officer to not attempt to like make another move to like eliminate kind of the fast shooting candidate. So like in the like fast shooting candidate that will be riding the boat with like Neo sitting beside kind of and like while having sharp eyes onto like the officer to ensure that the officer doesn't attempt anything. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And during this time I'm different like all of them like Neo getting like the biggest shot with like the fast shooting candidate will be riding like the boat like basically like getting eliminated out of like the blue out of nowhere like and like you're hearing like sound of weapon attack the power to be candidate like at that point putting elimination like the scenario like and I'm looking that happening through from like from a distance through like the board was like JumpRope team. You are like I'm throwing like the sniper like I'm thinking there might certainly be sniper at like JumpRope's team who would be like spotting with like both of like Neo from at far away distance and that like him totally noticing how that uh, like stadium was like basically so like in that boat like so like and to stop that boat like ensure that like they doesn't try anything and they doesn't they are not just to get away like to ensure that doesn't happen like maybe that sniper from like Django's team that using it's like sniper weapon like basically that eliminating that the fast running candidate who will be that riding the boat at that point is like it's enough that I'm doing. And that thing that I've stop to like me all of that point is like it's enough that I'm doing. That way like jump one team that making it towards like that boat in this like advertise me or as well as like the as well as like also alone would be like scenario that with all the putting the scenario that I am open. Always like but we know the industry right now that's for that one. So I have right now found out given we need like the lot of like the board my path like it most likely might be document connecting to that which is certifying that so far as like the winner of like the very first experience all the way back in like 1999 might be like a case like if you give that documents that would be different for it. Yeah, definitely might be the case, definitely might be the case. Maybe for like a minimum preemption right now as for like instead right now finding money and also bit for infinite that also like so definitely I'm still thinking another preemption that it might be solely that reward money that like the boatman path might have gained after like winning like the very first game in like 1999. Definitely might be the question and get like the fact that like path like not all living and lavish or like luxurious lifestyle even with all that money like like that might have been sold so leading to like the way in which like Mr. Park due to like Mr. Park skill on which like Mr. Park after like becoming like the winner of like first games in like 1999 that Park might have really trying to like justify himself because like in like Park's like journey to become after like entering into like Squid Games and totally finding out like what the Squid Games was like which might have been what might have happened. So since then like Park might have to spend his mind to do anything and everything to survive and make it to becoming a winner. So like along so far like journey to like the 1999 games actually might have been betrayed a lot of like other schooling candidates and that might have all sorts of villanistic things to survive within like the students in like 1999 and make it to like the finals and even win like the students in like 1999. Definitely not the framing. So like such an extremely villanistic man of might be how Miss Pop might have through such extreme betrayal and all sorts of trickery might be how that Mr. Park might have even made it to becoming like the winner of like the 99 games. Definitely my very emotional for what might have happened back then. So like after becoming the winner, like I'm looking like instead of living that after getting all that reward money, like instead of living all that like tourist lifestyle and might have been just guilt and guilt alone, like that extreme guilt that might have been like suffocating Park during that time. Definitely my brain of all the winners deeds that he had done to reflect on the story like the very first to get might have been what might have been the case Lima. So like Mr. Park might have started like it's like the friend attempt to like escape from all that which might have resulted in like Mr. Park instead of even after getting all that reward money instead of that attempting to like live that guilt might have caused him not to be able to like live a comfortable or like a luxurious life. But like instead like Mr. Park might have straight away decided straight away even after becoming the winner and coming back home like and that Park might have straight away the guilt might have caused like Park to straight away once again fall like the romance back then and my part might have straight away like told the man that he wants to work with like students and be part of like the students and just by working for like the students we along the lines he wants to job like the students we along the lines that part might have told like the man and the man might have told like it and accepted terms part and like back then like the part might have been working as like a student doctor with like the anyone and everything within like students back then might have been the case the administration so all that might have been that part the spread pattern to join force of the villain to like totally join force and let's spend time with them and that they to like separately forget about like to like separately making the believe that like all the villanistic things that Mr. Pump had done that basically by doing more of it like they believe it might have all been like like the great attempts to like convince him that he hasn't done anything wrong and to like the great attempts to like escape from like the guilt of the wrong by like surrounding himself and like consuming like more and more wrong things might have been what like so far might have that that then it's definitely my personal again for what might have happened in like that because like I'm going to have to pick up like the winner of like the experience in like very first experience in like 1999 and maybe that might have been what might have happened and once like Park might have turned back home like I'm looking like while Park might have been sitting all along with like with all that reward money like I'm looking like the cost of this might have been so extreme and suffocating for like Park that I'm looking like Park might have been desperate to like escape from like those like suffocating bonds of like guilt surrounding him might have been the case that he had to happen. That might have been like the only intent and goal in that Park's mind after even after getting becoming the winner of like the in that in like the very first game and like getting all that reward money. to that justify for that by that being part of all that uh, wrongdoing that and being part of the experience and that would just like convince that really convince himself that he's doing the right thing. By continuing on saying all that wrong things might have been what like the past might have done. It's in that time. It's definitely might have been. And by the way, I'm sure that like this might be the reason for like spark in like sparks from the thing photos of like spark and like spending time like really having fun with like info as well as like the lucky guy and all that like so like certainly it might be that desperate attempt to like of like spark to like to escape from like all that kids that was like chasing after him and haunting him by spending time with that stuff like people who like were like the reason behind all that kids chasing after like spark definitely my brother included for really convincing that is me that those people were right and was me that by being a part of that shows growth of that Christian might have been what might happening at the definitely my brother. Okay, so like definitely my brother ambition right now as for like the beliefs that have right now shown up to capture and choice mindset would definitely be the actual beliefs definitely my brother so it might have been definitely choice to like attack on that the Satan that sound of that might have resulted in like the actual police like showing up might be the case definitely not the correction, but like I'm looking right now that like the actual police showing up like and exactly while Mr. Choi have found all the money, buried money as well as like the students worker mask as well as like the red uniform like from like past from itself like I'm just definitely this would definitely be resulting in like definitely the chief police of like Janko finding out about like all those things that like Janko solely due to that like evidence yet like Janko was like desperate and even Zangon back then was like desperately trying to like convince him of that basically of like basically being this like game this good games and everything like this they were desperately trying to like convince like police chief of like we are right now with like so like right now like the police chief like I'm going to be having all that evidence through like the game as well as like surrounding uniform as well as all that money buried in the form of that part. So like considering that evidence element would be actually happening right now through like the hours of that Joy right now. So like the scenario that I'm doing that way with like the moment like the police chief would be seeing softly seeing all this like evidence like I'm doing at that point itself I'm bring like the police chief straight away along with like would be taking this Joy person and like an entire full scene of like police force like I'm doing like the chief would be bringing the and I'm looking that the police chief even like managing like actually right now would be actually without executive they would be managing to like even convince like the higher up the superior of that police chief as well right now since like he has like evidence right now definitely kind of the so like that way a huge enough force of a police force team along with like the police chief as well as like Mr. George would be getting on like maybe multiple boats that and would be like sailing up from like the mainland. So like definitely like the three person right now is that basically the domestic choice right now would totally be getting arrested like and the different like start next day and the different like Mr. Joy being able to like send photos of like definitely once like the police chief Mr. Joy would be like the police chief would be seeing all the evidence like at that point like the police chief like talking to like the story and realizing that that like gender time like what like Jennifer was trying to like convince like police chief like the truth and basically that at that point, something to like Miss Joy asking for like the phone for his phone to like to receive and like at that point, like Joy like taking leading photo of like the evidence and just need to be sending it to like John Host like the scenario that I'm going. So like I'm looking like John Host shockingly seeing this evidence and I'm looking at that point for like two positive either at that point itself like at the moment like John Host was seeing this evidence like I'm looking like maybe it's being during night time and at that point itself like just totally noticing a sound, like hearing a sound at that point itself, and that will be the sound of like most likely like the boatman path, like jumping out like their boat in like the middle of the night so that approach stealth while putting on diving costumes which he would have done somewhere within like the boat. As well as like the boatman path by then having set up some sort of like a timer explosive by like the scenario that I was doing. So like that boatman path like really jumping out of like the boat and like trying to only getting away while like the moment like Janko will be seeing just like message evidence like at that point just like I'm thinking that the boat uh at that point just like Janko totally hearing the sound of like someone jumping off like the boat and basically at that point just like Janko not seeing like it realizing that it's like the boatman but like at that point just like the boat boarding. and resulting in like the entirety of like Jumpo's team getting team A being getting eliminated, but like Jumpo alone who like the middle of the night would be alone at the in like the sidelines of like the boat that would be that like person causing Jumpo alone to like even while losing constantly like falling into like the sea. Even just like the like Jumpo still falling into like the sea and like I'm looking that way for like Jumpo will be getting watching a shot or by sheer point of like Jumpo watching shot like game and it's like which would be totally nearby at that time. But like the one person after that I'm like again Park as well by then would have using it like Dynasty would have made it to like this game I did. And it's definitely that looking out that I'm looking at for like one positive that I'm like the other positive that I'm looking for like the story that way sending like the image message to of like the evidence to like Jumbo totally getting stopped. And at that point I'm looking like most likely that for example we getting this message like I'm looking like Park post that right now totally keeping a sharp for a while right now it's like totally keeping a sharp fight on that or like example especially after like Mr. Joy having had like a sufficient connection to that the boatman park and after like Joy had went left like the boat uh, that case we since then like the fact that like the boatman park has kept the been spying on the like paying attention to like Junko and spying and keeping a sharp eye on Junko like so like I'm sure maybe by the time like Junko was talking seeing like nothing evidence of Mr. Joy at that point through like Junko's phone like at that point like I'm sitting like right behind from right behind Junko like I'm sure Junko getting attacked by like the boatman park just like this scenario right of so like I'm looking like maybe that probably happening during like night time that like would be John Hoylon that would be outside like the boat while all the other of like Jumbo's team members would be constantly reflect on the scenario that I'm so like the Fortnite Bark at that point like attacking Jumbo and potentially trying to like without having like without waking up like the remaining team members of like Jumbo the Fortnite Bark like attempting like to eliminate Jumbo and like to push Jumbo out to like the sea. But like I'm saying, at that point, like I'm saying, just really, unlike the honor type thing, like John Hope, like a brain teleport, definitely John Hope managing to like still, like, still fight back and basically to prevent himself from like falling into like, like the scenarios that I'm looking so like, yet like I'm saying, like the Boardman path, like a significant, like he's also like the winner of like the little game, like I think definitely the Boardman path would be definitely strong, and basically like fighting as well as like the scenario that I'm looking. So like definitely the government of still would be like managing like early off of Janko. But like by then like I'm putting Janko would be calling out and screaming out to like the remaining of the team members. So like by the time like the boardman would be that almost about to look like Janko of like the board I'm looking at that point like I'm looking like the sound of like the like I'm looking like Park would be hearing from behind it. And at that point I'm looking like it would be like all the team members of like Janko would have woken up and that at that point that Park getting cornered is like other persons and that I'm looking always behind him. And that way for like the progression of Park that I'm looking that Janko and seeing that realizing like that location of like the studio and that they can threatening like to like take up to like the studio island and that way like them even sending like the coordinates of like the studio island at that point straight away to like the police chief as well. So like that way like the police chief as well as like joy as well as like an entire uh, group of like police force to like this use team of like police force like on multiple host for clicks and me through this like exact location coordinates which like Jan Hope would have sent of like studio island like which like then who would have at that point sent to like the police chief like them all heading over to like on their way towards like Indian Island as well. It's like the major scenario that I'm going so like that way I was like literally while Jungkook and his like team will be finally making it through like this VM Island and at that point I'm different like at that point I'm different like the team members of like Jungkook maybe telling Jungkook to like basically that for them to like wait until like the remaining police forces like makes it to like 3 a.m. But like Jungkook definitely won't be at all totally definitely has no intention at all to like waste away even a second. So like I'm doing Jungkook and like 15 like straight away. Jungkook straight away already 15 like straight away that like right then it's like they have to like even without like extra backup like then having to like straight away head off to the studio building and like make their preparation and try to like bring out like the studio right then it's just the end of the lines Jungkook would be telling. to like team members and Janko straight away at that point Janko will also calling and calling like the team lead of like Janko's team and telling that about like Captain Go as well being a traitor and in that way the team lead as well that way threatening to like eliminate Captain Go and that way forcing Captain Go to like that way to take the team lead to that the actual game item just like the scenario that I'm looking for. So like that way I'm just bring like by the time Janko and his like team A will be training in the confederation attempts to like capture and bring down like the front line like at that point like the team B of that Janko will be showing up and basically changing the light of the battle. Still under maybe like the front man in home as well as like the remaining two members still managing to like put them into like a tight spot or also like about the hand. Maybe at that point would be when like the police chief and like and the full team of like police force will be making that impression and that going to being game over for like the front man info and just like implementing you know like the person after that and there's no bring them Yes, sir, like definitely not same section right now. It's but like currently the stuff that in the like about the play like the studio and but something like the studio like the nature of it like and it might be like that basically there would be a lot of experience important for and movement in like the studio especially like what I'm just trying what like the studio might to ending up being like definitely going to create machine. Yeah, like I'm covering like John said of managing to like even the experience disadvantage like the scenario that I'm covering even with that same disadvantage, like Junkie would be always struggling and would be feeling like giving up. But like at that point, like Junkie will be looking at her daily and basically that would be giving her that absolute strength to like even with all that to take in all that pain and suffering and to still give it her absolute everything and to still keep hanging on. And I'm looking definitely for like the good games that league not being over because like I'm looking before like the good games will be over like I'm looking most likely that the incorporation by most likely example and his legacy will be happening. Just like the scenario that I'm using like so then like the game building is like the scenario that I'm referring and like that are setting in like the Squid game get ending up getting interrupted it's like the scenario that I'm using. So like I'm focused setting like or like in the scenario to be like uh junkie is has put everything and like definitely that and the careful for like Sanjo begin with absolute everything to protect like the baby and like I'm looking like Bendigo and guy you know those junkie would be pushing like Bendigo and guy away like he will be as well he the absolute everything to like protect junkie like to ensure that like junkie doesn't get eliminated in like the scenario that I'm looking for. So that way I'm offering maybe of like a remote possibility of like maybe like then you go and die through such uh, a desperate attempt to like protect countries that in the process like then you go and die get eliminated. So it's also like the possibility that I'm offering. That's like I'm so literally going to play the games and compressing and reaching a point where like junkies there is a situation where like junkies will be about to get eliminated in the game and I'm offering like there will be absolutely nothing that Sanjay will be able to do to like perfect junkie at that point is like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm praying for like the scenario where like the situation ending up with like the Squid game has like Squid game which was almost about to be over. Like I'm pretty when I'm looking like Junkie will be about to get eliminated. But like I'm looking at that way last second is when I'm looking like Jump and his team like configuration into like the Squid game building was really happening. And basically that way that Junko is sitting and making it through like the room where like the Squid game would be taking place and that way like solely due to that configuration of Junko alone like I'm looking like uh about the present definitely solely due to that inspiration of that gun pointing into that the Squid rope alone, like makes sense to them making it to the Squid rope alone, like I'm looking like certainly managing like survive. Especially my preparation, not just Jackie, but like I'm trying that the scenario to be like not only Jackie, but like Sanjon by holding on to like the baby as well. I'm looking like it's a scenario where like both of them Jackie and Sanjo will be about to get eliminated in like the towards the very end of like the studio and like them ending up in like a situation where like the two of them are not being able to like win like the game and to be able to be faced with that absolute reality of like an extreme situation where like when both will be able to get eliminated. So to be at that very last second where like I'm hoping that jump of any speed like infiltration happening at that way like the game's getting stopped and that's going to be like the scenario. And that way like jungle as well as like Sanjo as well as the lady and all of them like totally would be that until surviving so letting push the game until that point will be able to like survive the game like the scenario that I'm so like fundamental revolution system totally protecting like jump in the screen is like configuration to like game building and eventually into like the game to the game room where like the fixed game would be almost about to over like the scenario that I'm playing. And at that point, even though I'm playing the game to get stopped through force by Jump team, still I'm playing like by then that the majority of like the remains to game candidate would have got eliminated to the point of like only single digit speaking candidates alone would have survived at that by that point it's like the scenario that I'm playing. I'm the only person filtering my brother in between that, like in the game, it will be definitely make so that would be like eliminating in that the front of like Thanos and but bring that elimination even happening through such a manner where like into that will be sacrificing himself to like take out like the front of Thanos in like the game is like the scenario that I'm so like simultaneous elimination of like both Minsu and like Thanos front. There's like what I'm doing to happen eventually like such a game like so it's the scenario that I'm doing exactly like a thing that kind of like a scenario where to that back in like the 20 industry games uh, where that one woman had basically eliminated that uh, other another male singing candidate in that whole class bridge crossing. It's definitely proves like a sacrifice manner like a between like a similar kind of like a situation happening in the case of like Ninja and the friend of Thanos like sending eliminated like one number three and three. So like the name of the right now with like the front manager right now revealing the demo of like the full game to like the vehicles like the blue and the impression of for like what like the game would be exactly like I'm looking like it would be like an extremely dangerous version of like jump rope where like I'm looking like it would be like a courage like kind of like situation but like it won't be at all similar to like the game back in like 2020 games. But like here I'm looking at like the bridge would be a solid bridge. But that there being a gap exactly like how in like the demo there's like a kind of a small gap in like the center of that bridge. Like I'm doing a similar actual actual like structure being set up, a bridge setup being set up uh where like there will be a small gap in like the middle and like I'm thinking there will be that like two robots like androids in like both ends of like that bridge like holding on to this like jump rope like kind of like metallic kind of like jump rope like thing and like I'm looking like this game and like that time would be like I'm looking like the time to like talk to every single one of like the game candidates to drop and make it to like the other end of like the bridge. I'm looking like will be similar to like the very same exact time as like was given during like the first game back in like 2020, like the scenario that I'm doing. And I'm going within that time limit, like I'm doing all the Squid Games candidates will be having the task to like totally solve and make it to like the top end of like the bridge while like simultaneously having to like jump each and every single time like the robot will be swinging that jump rope towards their feet like scenario that I was doing. That will be like that extreme difficult uh like at the studio that I'm trying. So like quite simultaneously like jumping from like getting spiked by like the jump rope on the thing which would be definitely like the more even if that's the single spike from that jump rope by the two androids like lands on like the feet of any of the players like at that point itself like that player would be straight away that falling off. That's the pretty chance like that might totally definitely that would definitely be totally resulting in like instant eliminations like the danger that I'm referring like the fifth game like how it will be set up. It's definitely another premise. So like I'm looking like also for like looking at it to be like the jump rope, like the androids like the robots will be swimming like the jump rope once like the fifth game begins like I'm looking like as like the player one by one will be like crossing like the first like I'm saying like initially the door of a robot like that will be holding the jump rope like I'm saying initially the swinging of like the jump rope will be at like an extremely slow pace is definitely my preference. So that like won't be that hard for like swinging candidate to like jump up during like the beginning portions of like the first game. But like as like time from this the thing like the first game I was looking like the speed of like the jump rope swinging by the two robots like will be getting a tad bit faster with each swing might be the case. So that like I'm just saying by the time like the game would be progressing to halfway point like I'm doing like the speed of like the jump rope swinging by the robot to be a lot faster than like the speed it will be so like the beginning of the studio. And I'm looking like by the time like the studio will be almost over, like I'm looking like the swinging of the jump rope will be seriously fast and extremely that much extremely dangerous. So like the scenario, range of scenario that I'm looking for the and I'm looking definitely I'm looking like a lot of studio candidates like pushing like the studio candidate in like the front of like the bridge so as to like basically to save time so that in the selfish man so that like they could due to that absolute fear like in a selfish man so that like they could like get of all the obstacles in front of them so that like they could like basically make it to like other end before like the jump rope, the speed of like the jump rope increases to like the point of like it being like that much extremely difficult for them to be able to like cross the bridge will be along the lines of between like a bunch of like civilian candidates like doing stuff being able to because definitely I'm bringing like for Janvi as well as Sanjon definitely will be ending up in like the lining up position of like the civilian of all civilian candidates who will be crossing like the bridge like under the like it will be definitely Sanjon as well as like Janvi that will be like the last to cross that will be in that we've already starting to like stand in like the last position to cross that like the scenario that I'm putting. So like I'm definitely putting that in the game like about all this like danger about like this like jump rope like the fear of like the jump rope racing with like every swing by the robot as like just like as like time travel like the fear of like jump rope as well creating like these all this like I'm putting that definitely will be revealed before like again begin. It's like the scenario that I'm looking for. Yeah, like I'm telling Sangyon definitely telling junkies that they need to go last because of like definitely Sangyon like experience from like of like the game of like the glass bridge or like the million data leaks and will only expecting that a lot of like betrayals and a lot of like civilian candidates like pushing other realistically pushing other civilian candidates of acceptance and all that. Would be one thing that Sanjon will be usually able to like see coming. So like I'm thinking that the Sanjon will only see that in his like mind, something that a scenario in his mind and like will be consciously taking the decision to like stand at like the far behind like at the far end like position of like the order of like crossing like the princess like the scenario that I'm thinking. And initially even though like Janti will be objecting to it like and Sanjon with like that serious space will be looking into like Janti like I am telling Janti that basically that basically he knows this like he has gone through similar kind of like situation and he knows what that like the civilian candidates would be doing and like would be pushing that other civilian candidates of the country would be around the like society the space like I'm telling like Jansi at that point and like, at that point like Jansi is only calming down. And I'm also bring like the scenario to be like for it to most likely be like Sangyon the now three civilian candidates and the friends would be the Indian guy, Sanjon, as well as Chanti, definitely on the same reason. Where like I'm bringing the order of like the last three would be that the bring to the Sanjon with like the baby that will be going in like the front. I mean like the last three and like it will be Janti with like the badly injured like who will be in like the middle. And like I'm bringing like it will be the Indian guy who will be like in like the last position. Like ensure that like Janti doesn't reflecting the ball of like the scenario that I'm saying. And that way definitely able to like then the 20 guys into the ending up having to like do that ultimate sacrifice in order to like save junkie like I'm saying like 20 guy eventually ending up like having to go through that absolute sacrifice and getting eliminated solely to that save junkie eventually like in the first game like definitely in the scenario that I'm talking and my position. And so the my reactions for like Junko and Junko like team A like I'm putting like just infiltration into like the game location like happening with like them trophy like taking over like the control system of like the swing of like the jump rope by the androids and I'm putting them managing to like stop that control of like the swinging of like and the managing so that way stop press the button and basically stop the swinging of like the jump rope exactly at the point where like by the time like the Libyan guy as well would be getting eliminated and that time would be like over and basically that final swing would be like happening with such extreme speed that like neither it's like the time different scenario to be like Jansi and like Sandu not being able to cross in time and basically that way like the time being over. And I'm different like at that point like the final swing of the number of would be at such extreme high speed that I'm different like there will be absolutely no chance at all of like for like Sandu either Sandu or like Jansi to be able to like jump that final swing of like that jump off. And so like that when they jump off like only approaching them with such extreme high speed and Sandu and Jansi will be totally short and care and would be only thing that this is paid from them. Because like already at the time as well will be over and like Jumbo will be approaching them with the extreme high speed. So at that point when I'm to like Jumbo and just left in that the Jumbo like managing to like turn that swinging of like the jump rope off and basically that jump rope like precisely stopping while right in front of like Sanjon and Janvi like right at like the jump rope will be with such high speed will be about to strike Sanjon and Janvi at that very last second like the jump rope stopping like scenario that I'm over. And that will be how like Sangyon Johnny and like the baby would be survive like the studio like the scenario. So in the scenario that I'm looking at, so it's like the Bluetooth is very interesting right now. For like the VIP spinners there right now walking like Johnny would like the passenger like having to carry like the baby while playing with the first game that the liberty so the liberty frames are right now definitely for like Johnny that may not survive like the first game, but that may understand like the baby to each other. So like the player would like for change the scenario to be like while exactly would be like attempting to like cross like maybe would attempting to like cross like the game while carrying like the baby like even with like the bad injured like still emphasizing at that point that absolute motherly strength, that absolute feeling to like certainly like, to ensure like the protection of the baby at all costs would be that would be happening for Janvi if it should be something in like Janvi even with like the bad injured like I'm looking like would be putting in all that force into that badly injured leg to like stand strong. And basically, while Janvi will be taking in all that pain and will be going through all that pain and will be while she will be still will be like only containing her like urge to like remove like that pain solely due to like her holding the baby. Solely not to like scare like the baby. So like I'm just like Janvi like going through all this extreme suffering and like Janvi still managing to like jump the jump rope like multiple times into like until gently would be making it towards like that halfway point of like the bridge where like that small gap would be. And at that point, I'm like once like that we will be making that jump from like that halfway point where the gap in like the bridge will be to like cross the bridge. Like at that point when I'm like the jump not ending up failing and like that resulting in like that jump rope like totally uh, almost about to strike Janvi with like the scenario that I'm looking at. At that point, it will be absolutely certain for Janvi that like Janvi is not going to make it. So like I'm throwing like Janvi and putting maybe in the air like Janvi totally throwing her baby towards like Sanjon like the scenario that I'm looking at. Sanjon catching like the baby and I'm putting Sanjon making that perfect jump and like Sanjon totally and that way like I'm hearing Janvi at that point is like instantly getting eliminated. Yeah, like I'm putting like the baby surviving in like Santion's like the scenario that I'm looking at like and my opinion but like the thing like the scenario that I'm looking at. Also the feeling of emphasis right now is that Mitsu holding up and Mitsu gradually like throwing like the chain of Thanos towards like the halfway point of like the delivering that would be totally resulting in like right now with like Thanos from being the threat for like that thing to eat the thing that chain like I'm looking definitely Thanos front will be right now will be attempting would be like the first to like attempt to like cross the bridge to like the scenario that I'm moving and so the front only for that the threat needs to like get that thing within that chain like and resulting in like Thanos' friend like only shopping for the remaining civilian candidates like Thanos' friend like successfully jumping like the jump rope all the way to like the point of reaching like that midway halfway point of like the bridge and like Thanos' friend would be picking up like the chain at that point of like the scenario and Thanos' friend will be totally excited and overjoyed and like the moment like Thanos' friend would be so excited and overjoyed that basically on getting like the chain that at that point like Thanos' friend would be totally losing his like focus and I'm doing it as like Thanos' friend would be taking up picking up like that thing out of like that chain and would be about to like eat it like at that point when I'm about to bring like the jump rope strike Thanos front and basically if Thanos front getting eliminated like a thing happening during that point of like the scenario that I'm about to sorry. And I'm also printing like Minso I'm about to bring in like the bridge crossing game like and looking like the game I'm totally printing Minso also that in the next game like totally different Minso to be like only then realistically will be pushing a bunch of like civilian candidates in like the front is standing in lining up in front of it as well for like to like cross to like to leave cross like the just well so also like any of the scenarios that I'm looking at the running. And yet I'm going to developing definitely for like Minsu eventually getting eliminated. Not being able to like make it towards like crossing like coverage and developing skill Minsu eventually would be like make a mistake and would be like ending up getting thrown away by like the jump rope and basically getting eliminated without much great delay after like Minsu will be like realistically pushing a lot of like studio candidates will be standing in front of out of that difference into elimination like the scenario that I'm like, the scenario that I'm looking over and oh yes, so like the name of preemption right now with like upper like Thanos front like elimination like to get the things on the selected area that's like about the correct difference. Definitely about the preemption for like uh the scenario to be like it's not definitely not being like a smooth journey for like someone like the scenario that I'm looking for. definitely a people like even while I'm proliferating like Sanjon along with the way we surviving like still I'm people like it for to be a scenario where like Sanjon while trying the baby towards him like and like Sanjon looks like the baby like usually right now and that's are running to reaching like the halfway point straight away. It's like the scenario that and like Sanjon like jumping like the jump rope and like Sanjon like making that perfect jump even from like that halfway point where like the like gap between like the positions there as well and the Sanjon is fully making that jump and able to connect Sanjon only then would be running towards like trying to like especially as the first cross like the bridge but like I'm looking at like Sanjon would be almost about to cross the bridge like I'm looking like to make the timing Sanjon getting the timing of to like jump like the jump rope and that resulting in like Sanjon like feet like barely touching like the jump rope and resulting in like Sanjon losing the like balance and Sanjon like totally falling from the bridge. Um, Yet like Sanjon will be hanging on, managing to like hang on to like the bridge, and that way prevent like falls like the scenario that I'm doing. And that number will be such an extreme shock and giving that absolute scare to like not only like Johnny but also to like Bendigo and Dyson. It's like this baby. So like I'm putting Sanjon hanging on to like the edge of like the bridge while like the jump rope will be keep going on, swinging on to like the scenario that I'm doing. And then Sanjon will be only having the task to like basically to get the back to pull himself back on top of Ectopus while doing that while also ensuring to like dot like the jump rope while doing that to not get spiked while by the jump rope while also having to do that having to get himself back onto Ectopus while also simultaneously avoiding like getting spiked again by like the jump rope. That would be that ultimate task Sandron will be having. But like I'm going like Sandron at that point like while hanging on to like the person like looking at like the baby and like looking at like the Johnny's like face from the distance and basically Sanjong with that absolute determination and absolute uh, confidence and absolute determination. Like I'm just going to be keep putting in all of this like energy and all putting in all that force into like pulling himself up and Sanjong totally pushing and like totally pushing at all of its strength and like pulling himself up onto like the bridge just barely by the time like the next swing of like jump rope would be almost like reaching Sanjong and the moment Sanjong will be getting back onto like at that point, like being a bit more like the moment I'm going to be getting back onto the at that point, I'm not having to like jump and save himself from like the jump off. It's like the scenario that I'm again like I'm doing Sandon succeeding in doing both of that with that absolute perfection due to Sandon so like absolute determination and that absolute adrenaline rush like going on to like the maximum and peak within like Sandon like the scenario that I'm doing. Then like that with that single upper like Sandon will be simultaneously pulling himself up and basically sometimes you will be making that jump and like project that jump of like at that point itself like once like Sanjon will be landing that on like the bridge like at that point like Sanjon talking making that final run towards like the end of like, the bridge and Sanjon along with like the baby making it to crossing like the bridge at that point like the scenario that I'm doing. So the like the scenario that I'm doing and that at that point itself like Sanjon totally undoing like the side of like the baby and basically Sanjon like totally basing the baby on like the other end and like Sanjon like trying to like see the word and basically Sanjon totally deciding to like turn back to like the cross and deciding to like come cross like to save Jansi to help Jansi as well cross the bridge. But like right just like Sanjon and then the understand that time, like none of the remaining speaking candidates, like I'm maybe having like the courage to the still, you know, after witnessing also like I'm still like none of the speaking candidates being able to like bring themselves to that concept. So like the way that I'm doing. So at that point is when I'm the like has like I'm going to be deciding to like return back to like cross like the bridge again solely to like save and help Jansi cross like I'm the as like I'm going to be about to return back. Like at that point I'm just like the NG guy, okay, shouting out towards like Sanjion should stop and to not do it. That will mean that like then people and guys will do it. Like and at that point, I'm like Janti would be totally straight away telling like that she wants that she doesn't need any help from like the Indian guy will be along the line like Janti would be telling like the Indian guy. But like at that point, like the Indian guy is totally hugging like Janti tightly and telling Janti that basically to that he's like absolutely sorry that like all the Indian guy can say at this point, but to like totally for Janti to like trust the Indian guy that then you're going to telling Janti that like yeah that he the totally badly still even though they the like Janti believes it or not like the bad he wants the other thing he did was to like so me for him to like badly live with like Janti and their baby so like even if that eventually it ends up not being possible for him. Like, at least he wants like Janvi to be there for like the baby. That's like the more likely scenario that I'm looking at. Like maybe then become telling Janvi that basically that he can't be a good father for like the baby. So definitely then at least then become guy to be to give the black baby Janvi set up a good mother in Janvi. So like that way, like then become guy telling Janvi that like even if it's true, like then become guys like sacrifice that actually would ensure that like Janvi manages to like cross like in the along the lines of the like the Indian guy assuring Janvi while looking with like while telling Janvi just the black bear will see the space while looking on to like Janvi's eye like the scenario that I'm doing, and that particular like Janvi finally totally convinced and agreeing, and that way like I'm like this. But at that point, I'm not putting like scenario that I'm putting for like the Indian guys like okay, carrying Janvi on his back, and then like while holding on to like both arms of like Janvi while carrying Janvi on his like back. And Janvi would be only holding on to like the Indian guy with like both like wrapped out around like the Indian guy. Into like the scenario that is like how like the Indian guy and Janvi will be attempting to like cross the friendship like the scenario that I'm looking at. So they are looking like in their struggle like I'm looking like the Indian guy and Janvi like totally definitely I'm looking like the added weight of like Janvi into the taking like the whole process of like the being that much extremely hard for like the Indian guy who also has like a certain extent of that injury syndrome. So like I'm looking like the scenario to be like I'm looking like once like the Indian guy along with like Janvi eventually crossing like progressing through like the bridge and reaching like the halfway point. But like I'm between like once like since like in that bridge like the halfway point in like the bridge that gap like I'm between like the moment that then the going guy around with like Jansi while holding on to Jansi would be jumping that gap of like the middle point gap of like the bridge and landing onto the bridge. At that point, like I'm looking like the weight of Jansi on like the Indian guy's shoulder, resulting in like the Indian guy not being able to like make that perfect landing and him making a misstep and like right then itself like the yeah, like I'm feeling the Indian guy and Junkie not falling off, but like as like the Indian guy was struggling to like really get up like and by then like the jump rope would be like making it towards them and really striking them and when possibly resulting in like them both like falling into like their elimination. Like in the scenario that I was totally like and my the reaction.